How much time do you think a recruiter spends on an initial scan of a candidate's CV? I want you to pause the video, note your answer down, and then continue watching. An eye tracking study was conducted in 2018, which analyzed the amount of time a group of professional recruiters spent in initially screening candidate CVs. The study revealed that 6 to 8 seconds is the average time a recruiter spends to initially scan a candidate's CV before they decide if they want to read it into detail or not. And this is when many candidates are eliminated from the game. According to Robert Meyer, president of Job Market Experts, 98% of candidates are eliminated at the initial resume screening stage, and only the top 2% candidates make it to the interview. So you only have a short time to make a good impression on the recruiter. The big question now is, what is it that sets CVs from these top 2% candidates apart from the others? Hi, my name is Edith. Over the last 5 years, I've used a set of concepts to help many of my friends and my students to prepare strong CVs for either jobs, schools, internships, or grant applications. Today, I'm going to be sharing this concept with you so that you can also prepare a persuasive CV. In this video, I'm going to be showing you in 3 steps how you can prepare a CV that catches recruiters' attention so that they want to get to know you more and they invite you for an interview. This video is more of a tutorial type, and so there are certain points along the video where I ask you to pause and do a small brainstorming exercise. Now let's start with the first step, which is decoding job descriptions and getting past the applicant tracking system, ATS. About 60% of companies, it's usually large companies, use an automated software to initially screen documents, application documents, so CVs, cover letters, before they even get in the hand of the recruiter. What does ATS do? ATS tries to find the best match between the job description, so what the company or institution is looking for, and the candidate profiles, and makes a ranking. And so if ATS rejects your application at this stage and says you are not a good fit for the job, that means your CV doesn't get in the hand of the recruiter. So you are already out of the game. And this is quite pathetic that maybe you are the best candidate, but then you are not able to get past this applicant tracking system. So how do you make sure that your application makes it into the hand of the recruiter? First, you need to read the job description, whether it's a job or a school or a grant application. You need to read the description carefully and try to highlight connections between what they are looking for and your profile. So here I just selected a random biochemist job description online for illustrative purposes, and I chose a biochemist profile because this video was inspired by the final year biochemistry students of the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. And I would mention that the concepts that we are going to go through in this video are, however, universal. So it doesn't just apply to a biochemistry job, or it doesn't only apply to a bachelor graduate. So you can also be a PhD graduate, a master graduate. The concepts are universal, so you can use them in designing your CV. So once you have read the job description and highlighted the connections between your profile and what they are looking for, the next step is to identify keywords and phrases from the job description and try to use the same keywords and phrases in your CV. Here, I just make an illustration of how you can try to find keywords that are relevant to the job description. So for example, if we look at this job description, we see that they mention our team of researchers, communication, collaborative. So it shows that working in a team structure is really important for such a job. Then research, experiments. So if you need to have experience working in a laboratory, this is just an example. I'm not saying this is the best keywords to use, but it's more of an intuitive process. So when you're reading the job description, try to see which keywords stand out to you. For example, problem solving, being able to train and motivate other people. So you need to find these keywords and phrases and try to use them when you're writing your CV. One word of caution, however, is that you don't copy full sentences verbatim from the job description and paste in your CV just to make it past the applicant tracking system. Some ATS softwares are also trained to identify these verbatim copy and paste and eliminate them from the process. So you need to just find keywords and phrases and use them when you are describing your skills and experiences. It's also very important to note that most of the time when you read job descriptions, there are several requirements and you might not meet all of them. You don't need to fulfill 100% all the qualifications. If you do, that's perfect. However, there is no perfect candidate, to be honest. And so if you read a job description and you find out that there are some skills listed on the requirements which you are missing, you can still go ahead and apply if you meet the basic requirements. I would say if you meet about 75% to 80% of the requirements, just try. You never know. You might get the job, and then those other skill sets that are missing, you will learn them on the job. Another important thing that you can do to make sure that your application documents are well read by ATS is to use simple and universal fonts. So we are talking about Times New Roman or Arial or Calibri, or these simple fonts that are easy to read by both humans and computers. So you see on the screen here, the font on the left is Times New Roman and it's readable, and then this fancy font is not really readable. And so you want to make sure that you select very simple fonts, spacing of 1.5 so that everything is easy to read and clear. And the font size should be 11 or 12, not smaller, because then it's very irritating to read for the recruiter who gets the CV later on. It's also important to note that ATS does not recognize tables, headers, borders, and all those special symbols. So try to keep everything as simple as possible and avoid these extra characters and graphics and all that could result in an error when your CV gets passed to the ATS. And now this brings me to the second main step, which is how to structure and format your CV. We've already seen at the beginning how little time recruiters spend to initially scan a CV before they decide if they want to read it or not. And so you have to make sure that the layout of your CV is as simple as possible so that when somebody looks at your CV, they want to read it into detail. Some people are fond of writing curriculum vitae at the top of their CV, which is totally unnecessary because it's already obvious that this is a curriculum vitae, so you don't need to write a CV here. Another thing is, when you think about the purpose of a CV, it is to persuade the recruiter that you are a good fit for the job. So recruiters are usually looking out for what are your qualifications, what experiences do you have that match the job. So how do you make these things prominent so that within those 6 to 8 seconds that they are quickly scanning through your CV, they are able to find them? That brings me to the second point, to keep a consistent visual hierarchy. So what do I mean by that? All the main captions of your CV should have the same formatting. So you can decide to make it all caps for the main headings, which are like professional summary, education, work experience. So you keep the same formatting, all caps. You can also use, for example, capitalize each word and then make it bigger. It's more of a personal preference. There's no one size fits all. And then the other subheadings also have a specific formatting so that there is a hierarchy that if someone is scanning through the CV, they can see, this is a new section that I'm moving into. So moving from education to work experience. So it's easy for the people to scan the CV quickly. Now I just show a comparison. On the left, I have the CV without the formatting, and on the right, we see the CV, which has this visual hierarchy. So you can confirm that it's easier to quickly find what is the qualification of this person. The person has a BSc in biochemistry and all that. It's easy to identify stuff compared to the one on the left without the highlighting and all that. So this is just to show you how much a simple highlighting can go to make your CV more prominent. And another important part is to proofread your CV and spell check it. It's super important. And now I just want you to do a short exercise. How does it make you feel when you encounter an error in somebody's writing? So in the professional summary, just this part, there are 3 errors. So I want you to pause the video, read through the professional summary, and try to identify the 3 mistakes that are in there. And what I want you to do is try to see how does this reading the errors in the professional summary, how does it make you feel? And this is exactly the same way the recruiter is going to feel when they open your CV and then they are reading and it's full of errors. So please pause the video and just read through the professional summary and try to find the error. So here I've highlighted where the mistakes are in the CV. When a recruiter opens your CV and on the first page, a few lines down, and they've already spotted 3 mistakes, it can send a message to the recruiter that you are careless or you didn't spend much time reviewing your CV to make sure that it's free of mistakes. And so this is not an impression you want to leave with the recruiter. It's a competition, and so you don't want to eliminate yourself in this way. So you want to give your CV to your friends to check it for you, or your colleagues or your family members. Let them read through and correct any mistakes that are super prominent and can cost you. Now, to recap on the key points on how to structure and format your CV, we want to talk about simple and clear layout. And I forgot to mention that your CV should not be more than 2 pages. You have to keep it ideally 2 pages maximum. Don't go over 2 pages. If you are a more experienced person and you have a lot of experience, of course, then you can go to 3 pages, but don't overdo it, because then you put the people off and they don't want to read your CV. You have to remember to keep a visual hierarchy. The formatting should be consistent throughout the CV. And then try to proofread your CV and correct all the mistakes that are in there, because it doesn't leave a good impression. And now we move to the 3rd step, which is understanding the top skills that you need to include in your CV. And then we are going to be building a CV step by step. Now we'll do another brainstorming exercise. I want you to just imagine yourself, you've just finished your degree and you're about to apply for your very first job, about to build your very first CV. What are the skills that you think you're going to include in your CV? So just take like 2 to 5 minutes and write down the top skills that you think are important. If you are writing your CV, you're going to include in it. So when writing your CV at this stage of the application process, I would say focus on your hard skills. And what are hard skills? What are soft skills? Hard skills are field-specific skills that are measurable. So we are talking about grades, we are talking about qualifications. So if you say you have a GPA of 3.1, a GPA of 3.2, it's quantifiable. Or if you know a programming language, this is something tangible. And if you also have a certain number of publications, or you're able to speak a certain number of languages and at certain level, these are all technical skills and they are hard skills. So you want to focus on the hard skills when you're preparing your CV, because when job applications are being reviewed, they are looking for candidates who can do their job. And then once they find someone who can do their job, they want to also see, do you have the soft skills? Are you able to work in a team structure? So soft skills, on the other hand, are transferable skills. So these are interpersonal skills, how someone is able to work and if they are able to adapt to situations, or this kind of skills, and they are transferable. And I found this statement somewhere, I don't remember. it says hard skills may get your foot in the door and soft skills will keep you there. So this means that when you're preparing your CV, you focus more on the hard skills. Once the recruiter thinks, this person has the qualifications, has the expertise that I'm looking for, and then when you get the job, then you use your soft skills. You are able to work with people, you are adaptable, you are resilient and all that. But then if you just write your CV and you're focusing on your soft skills and hardworking without saying you have a biochemistry degree, the recruiter doesn't know that you have a biochemistry degree. They would ignore your application. So focus on the hard skills. You will incorporate soft skills in your CV. However, the focus should be on hard skills. This is an interesting article I found about the top 10 skills that you will need for the future of work, published by World Economic Forum, which I find very interesting. We've all seen how the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way we work, and also the energy crisis we are currently facing, as well as the war in Ukraine and all that. And so it just brings the focus onto what type of skills will be more relevant for the future. For example, analytical thinking and innovation, how we are able to face new problems and unprecedented situations. So it's just an interesting article I wanted to share with you guys. Now we've gone through all the steps of building the CV and all that. So we will put it into practice right now. We will prepare a CV from scratch. So first thing is, the first page of your CV is what the recruiter is going to see first. And so any important information about yourself, if they don't get onto the second page, they are not going to see it. And so all the important information about yourself, you want to keep on the first page. So you want to put your name. Of course, they are interested to know who is this candidate, and then your contact details. So you want to put an updated email and phone number. It's also helpful if you include a LinkedIn profile or any other professional profile, which they can easily click on and take a look at your profile and see what else have you done. And another important part is the professional summary. The professional summary is just a short summary of your main achievements and your career goals or plans. And it gives the recruiter, they don't know anything about you, they've just received your CV. So it's just like a small summary that gives them an insight into who you are. So it's quite helpful if it's well crafted. Avoid using all those fancy, I'm an obedient, honest, and all those flowery language. Just go straight to the point. I'm a motivated biochemist. I have 6 months experience in designing and executing experiments, which are related to immune responses, like everything straight to the point and about yourself and related to the position. If you notice, I used the term biochemist in the professional profile. I also use I'm competent in laboratory testing, sequence data analysis. So all these things are written in the job description. So their keywords are lifted from the job description and then put them here. So you want to think about, how do you use keywords from the job description to describe yourself, like your profile, what you've done in the last few years? And now we move on to the next section, which is education. You want to list your educational background in reverse chronological order. What do I mean by that? Reverse chronological order means that your most recent qualification comes on top, and then the oldest qualification is on the bottom. So if you are finishing a biochemistry degree, that will be your highest qualification at this point. So that comes at the top, and then your WASI becomes the next on the bottom. So if somebody has a PhD degree, for example, then their most current qualification is the PhD. So that comes on top, and then the master comes below that, and then the bachelor comes below. So in that order, the most recent qualification first. And you want to also place the most important information on the left-hand side. So most people in most languages read from the left towards the right-hand side, except in a few languages. And so the most important qualification, what the recruiter is looking out to see, what is the qualification of this person? So it's a BSc in biochemistry. So that comes to the left-hand side. Other details you can put on the right, like the dates. If they want to see when did you get this biochemistry degree, they can look at the dates and all that, but the most important piece of information here is the qualification. So the BSc in biochemistry. And you also want to include the information about the university where you got this degree. And yeah, in terms of the dates, you need to show which month and which year. If you write only the year, it's hard to say how many months you've been in a certain role. So it's always helpful when you have both the month and the year. So the recruiter can say, this person was in this role from this period to that period. That makes 6 months of experience in that role. So then it's easier for them to somehow evaluate your experience rather than just writing 2020 to 2022. That doesn't say anything. And also, you want to include some information about what did you do during your bachelor degree program. So you can include information about your thesis, title of your thesis, and achievements and skills that you acquired while doing that thesis. So it gives some orientation about yourself and what you were doing. It's also helpful. Some people include also some courses. So if you did a course which is directly related to the position you're applying for and you think can help, you can also include some course modules that you think are important. You can include them in your CV. While you are writing up your experiences and achievements and all that in your CV, you want to start those phrases with action verbs. So instead of saying, I was doing something, you just go directly and say, developed a simplified equilibrium dialysis, formulated my research plan, collaborated, served. And here I give a few more examples of action verbs that you can use when communicating. For example, if you want to communicate your analytical or critical thinking skills, you can use like evaluated, determined, reviewed. You want to say you have teaching experience or mentoring, you say I facilitated, I mentored, etc. And now once you've written your educational background, you want to include something about your work experience. And work experience or research experience combined if you don't have so much experience. And for each of the positions that you've held, you need to indicate where is it, how long were you in that role, and also some of the things that you did there. So you want to talk about your achievements, you want to talk about some responsibilities. I would say if you are a more experienced person, you've got like a lot of accomplishments, then you should focus on those rather than responsibilities. However, if you are just finishing a bachelor's degree and you don't have so much experience, it's okay to list responsibilities or the tasks that you did in a certain role. If you are just starting out as a new graduate, it's also important to include a skills session, like a dedicated skills session. So you outline the skills that you feel you have, which are relevant for the position. So for example, you can say that you are critical in analyzing and interpreting scientific results. You talk about writing your bachelor thesis, and you have more than 6 months experience working with PCR or ELISA, etc. The languages you speak and all that. So it's just easy for the people to see at a glance what you are able to do. And as I said before, complementary skills are also very important. So these are soft skills. If you volunteered your time during the vacation or you were involved in some organizing and leading something, these are all important skills that you can list on your CV. And of course, if you've had some training activities, that's also a good experience to include. And another important section is the honors and awards. So if you've received any special awards during your studies, highlight those. It's really important that you make them prominent in your CV. And of course, if you had some conference contributions, also try to include them. The part about interests, I want to especially clarify the parts regarding interests. So if you have a specific interest which is related to the position and can boost your chances. For example, you're applying to a marketing position or advertising position in a pharmaceutical company, and you've already been writing blog posts on self-care and how people can live better lives. This is a perfect match with the job description. So you want to highlight some of these interests that can help boost your chances. yeah, for example, if you coordinate a book club in your community and you're applying for a librarian position, this is perfect. You have to include that in your CV. However, if you only have some interests which are generic, for example, watching movies, listening to music, everybody does that anyway. So if you write that, I don't think it's going to add anything to your CV. So better to leave it out. And of course, you can leave out the references. If they are interested in the references, they will contact you. And now we have our complete 2-page CV. As I said, try to be as concise as possible. If you have a bachelor's degree, your CV can even fit in 1 page. So try to keep everything as concise as possible. And now I will share some practical tips to make your application stand out. We already heard the competition is tight. So the first tip is to use numbers, percentages. Always quantify your achievements. So when you're describing any of the sections of your CV and you have some achievements to explain, or it can also be some skills, always use numbers to quantify them, because then it helps the other person reading your CV to have an idea about what you actually did. So let's say, for example, you were the financial secretary for the Ghana Biochemistry Students Association, and during your time as financial secretary, timely collection of dues increased by 10%. So indicate that in your CV. During my time as the GAPSA financial secretary, timely collection of dues increased by 20% or 10% or 50%, and use numbers. I have 6 months of experience working with the PCR, more than 2 years experience programming using Python. So use numbers as much as possible. This is super important that you don't just use cliche words, and try to use examples as much as possible. Some people will write, I'm a good leader, I manage my time very well, I have good organizational skills, with nothing to back it. And so you can use examples. If you were the president of the Ghana Biochemical Students Association or GAPSA or any other student association, and you were in charge of organizing the annual congress, that's a lot of organizational work and leadership required. And so if you communicate this, that during your time as the GAPSA president, you led the organization of the annual congress, I mean, this is super. You are saying you have good organizational skills, good leadership skills, without saying I have good organizational skills. So try to use examples as much as possible. And finally, it's important to tailor your language if you are communicating with academia or industry. So when you're communicating with academic community, they are focusing more on research, and so you want to use the language that is familiar with the academia. And when you are sending a CV to industry, they are more focused on projects, project management, project execution, completion of things on the deadlines and all that. So you want to tailor your language slightly in terms of projects. So you see your research as a project and you try to tailor your language in that way. The same with communication. For example, if you send your CV to a professor and you say you presented a poster at a Ghana Biomedical Conference, they immediately know the value of presenting a poster in a conference. And if you send this to an industry, someone who doesn't have much idea about what it means to present an academic poster, it doesn't help a lot. So you have to just tailor the language depending on where you are sending your CV. And finally, I want to emphasize that never ever send a generic CV to different positions or different organizations and hoping for an answer. There is no one size fits all when it comes to CVs and job applications. Each position needs a tailored CV. So how do you make sure that you have a tailored CV for each position? One trick that I use is to have a master CV. I try to build my CV over a long period of time. So every 3 months, anything new that I did during that period, I try to add it to the CV. So this is your master CV, and it can be as long as, I don't know, 10 pages, as long as possible. However, you don't want to send this long CV to every company requesting for a job or anything. So what you can do is you have a master CV, which is a dump. You put all the skills, all the experiences and everything there. And when you find a position What you do is look on your master CV and read the job description and see which of my skills on the master CV match exactly the skills that are required by this job. And then you try to cherry pick and put those skills into your CV. And then you have a tailored CV for the job. And finally, a strong application requires both your hard skills and soft skills. And another component, which is your personality. You have to have the right attitude while applying, and you can also communicate that through your CV.
I hope you found this video helpful. Try these concepts out when you are preparing your next CV and let me know how it goes by leaving a comment below. If you know any other tips on how you can make your application stronger, how you can make your CV stand out, feel free to share it with everyone in the comments below. And if there is anything else I can help you with, do get in touch.